Hello and welcome to Psychology School. I hope you all are safe and fine. So today we are going to discuss about the most common topic, stress. And this is related to the next chapter, chapter number 3, Meeting Life Challenges of class 12. So in this chapter you will come to know about stress, its nature, types of stress, and why we feel stressful in different life situations, how we react to stressful situations, and how people can learn to cope with stress. You will also come to know about coping styles so that stress can be reduced. So let me remind you that you will get answers of the questions of previous video class at the end of this video. So now we will discuss several topics of stress. Every individual experiences stress in many life situations. Stress is actually a normal part of our life, and it is thought of in negative terms, but it also serves a useful purpose. Stress is necessary and can motivate us in our life. How? We will further discuss it. So there are various examples of stressful situations that we experience in our life. Students can experience stress during their examination time. One may feel stressed due to financial problems or due to personal relations, or one may feel stressed due to disturbed relationship with a close friend, or mother can feel stress thinking about her child's health and career. One may feel stressed due to the lack of job, and so on. So examples are endless, but the fact is that life has many challenges, and we should look around ourselves and we will find that life is a big challenge. Think of a poor and needy person who don't have any source of income, or think of a single mother who faces many challenges. Or you can take the example of parents who bring up their children suffering from mental retardation. So these situations can be more stressful for that particular person who is facing these situations. Now all of us try to face challenges in our own way. Some can deal with stressful situations successfully, while others surrender or quit to face these challenges, and they think negative about the situation. We can deal with any stressful situation by changing our negative outlook. Life challenges are not always stressful. It depends on how we look towards that particular situation. It is generally said that one can bring out the best in one's personality when one is challenged. So in this chapter, you will come to know how people cope with life challenges. So let's start with the nature of stress. We experience stress due to the challenges, problems, and difficult situations of our life. Stress disturbs the natural equilibrium of the body, and on the other hand, it increases the probability of one's survival. The word stress has its origin in the Latin word strictus, meaning tight or narrow, and stringer, meaning to tighten. These words reflect the internal feelings of tightness and constriction of the muscles and breathing reported by many people under stress. So there is no generally accepted definition to define the term stress, but Hans Selye, the father of modern stress research, defines stress as the non-specific response of the body to any demand. Stress is also defined as the pattern of responses an organism makes to stimulus, event that disturb the equilibrium or the balance state of the body and exceeds a person's ability to cope. So stress is often defined as an environmental stimulus, an individual psychological or physiological response towards any environmental stimulus, and it is also defined as the interaction between the individual and his or her environment. Now let me tell you about strain and stressors. So stressors are events that cause our body to give the stress response. Stressor is used to refer to environmental situations or events which are capable of producing states of stress, whereas the term strain refers to the individual response and is the symptom or of stress, which can be physical, psychological, or behavioral. So they are the indicators of ill health and well-being of the individual. Now let's discuss about the difference between eustress and distress. Stress is not necessarily something damaging, bad, or to be avoided. In general, stress is just a conditioned response to a stressor or a stressful event. Stress helps us to survive. Eustress is not damaging or bad and is something people should break out rather than avoid. Eustress can heighten our senses and improve our performance with a given task or assignment. Eustress is generally defined as a good stress. It actually has emotional and physical health benefits. So it motivates and energizes us. Some examples includes exercising, starting a new job, traveling, and so on. Whereas distress decreases our focus and performance. It contributes to mental and physical problems. It also generates unpleasant feelings and emotions and causes our bodies wear and tear. In distress, you feel like your health is not good and you have negative thoughts about life and yourself. So examples of stressful situation which leads to distress include the death of a family member, unemployment, conflict in interpersonal relationships, and so on. Well, let's understand the psychological meaning of stress. Whenever we experience stress or we are confronted with some internal or external stressor, it leads to biological and psychological reactions because we experience stress and we try to cope with the challenge or stressful situation. People also avoid the stressful situation and defend themselves when they feel that they can't overcome the situation. A response to stress can be both as an accepting challenge and trying to overcome the situation, as well as it will be manifested in terms of illness or strain. Now, according to Hans Selye, the father of modern stress research, stress is the non-specific response of the body to any demand. This means, irrespective of the nature of situation and cause of the threat, all individuals have same physiological response, so all negative stimuli cause the same response. But this view was criticized by many researchers, and they argued that stress response is not general. Different kinds of stressors produce different reactions, and different individuals will react or behave differently to stressful situations. Another important thing is that stress is not a factor that exists within the individual or environment. Rather, it is an ongoing process that involves individual's interaction with his socio-cultural environment and making efforts to cope with the challenges. Now, stress is a dynamic condition and it disturbs our normal state of equilibrium, therefore gives rise to the requirement of achieving the balanced state. Now, moving on to our next topic, which is the theory of stress given by Lazarus. Lazarus and his associates proposed the cognitive theory of stress. According to Lazarus, the stress is experienced when a person perceives the demands exceed the personal and social resources the individual is able to mobilize. So according to him, individual's perception of the situation is the important factor. So the effects that stress has on a person is based more on person's feelings of threat and ability to cope rather than on the stressful event itself. An individual's response depends upon the perception and appraisal or interpretation of the situation. Lazarus defined two kinds of appraisal, primary appraisal and secondary appraisal. Primary appraisal means when we decide if a situation is threatening or positive, relevant or irrelevant to our situation. We evaluate three things. First is whether the threat is significant. Secondly, whether it is a positive encounter or it is threatening, harmful or challenging. Now, harm is the assessment of the damage which has been done already. Threat is the assessment of possible future damage which may be brought by the situation. And challenge is when you feel you can cope with the stressful situation. If the individual decides that the situation is threatening, the individual can suffer from injury or illness. He or she may feel anger, disappointment, worry and anxiety or fear. Now coming on to the secondary appraisal. When we perceive the situation as threatening and stressful, we assess what resources are available to us to cope with the stressor. The individual inquires about the options available and the likelihood that he or she can apply the strategies available for successful coping or to reduce the stress. The resources can be mental, physical, personal and social. If the person thinks that he or she has sufficient resource, he or she will feel less stress. Now these appraisals are very subjective and will depend on many factors, such as if a person has experienced the same stressful condition in past and he was successful in coping with the challenges, so the present similar situation would be less threatening for him or her. So past experience is an important factor. Another important factor is whether the stressful event is perceived as controllable. It means whether a person can control the negative situation and its consequences or not. If one has control, then there will be less stress. So stress includes all the environmental and personal events which challenge or threaten the well-being of a person. Now we will discuss a general model of the stress process, in which stresses are classified into types and dimensions. Person's characteristics and resources are also classified, and it is also mentioned that there are variety of stress reactions. So let's discuss this model, a general model of the stress process. As indicated in this figure, stresses can be environmental, such as noise, air pollution, crowd, etc. Psychological, such as frustration and conflict. And stresses can be social, such as disturbed interpersonal relationship with a friend or loneliness. Stresses vary in terms of dimensions. So the stresses which people experience also vary in terms of intensity, means high or low, duration, means short term or long term. Stresses vary in complexity, means it is more complex or less complex, and predictability, which means the stresses are predictable or unexpected. So usually stressors with high intensity, more complex and prolonged stressful situations and unexpected situations have more negative consequences. As indicated in the figure, person's characteristics, whether physiological, psychological or cultural, are also relevant in dealing with stressful situations, such as person with poor physical health and weak constitution would be more prone to stressful situation. Similarly, psychological characteristics like mental health, temperament and self-concept are important in dealing with stress. The cultural environment also determines the meaning of any event and defines the nature of response that is expected under various conditions. And next is the resources of the person, such as money, social skills, medical care, coping style, support and network and so on, also determine the appraisal of a given situation. Now, as indicated in the figure, stresses result in a variety of stress reactions, which may be physiological, behavioral, emotional and cognitive. So at the physiological level, arousal plays an important role in stress-related behavior. The hypothalamus initiates action along two pathways. The first pathway involves the autonomic nervous system. The adrenal gland releases large amount of catecholamines into the bloodstream, which leads to physiological changes and manifested in fight or flight response. The second pathway involves the pituitary gland, which secretes the cortisol that provides energy. The behavioral response to stress are mainly fight or flight responses. Emotional responses involve negative emotions such as fear, anxiety, disappointment, anger, and so on. Cognitive response involves beliefs about the harm or threat caused by a stressful situation and beliefs about its controllability. Now moving on to our next topic, signs and symptoms of stress. Stress affects everyone differently, but there are a number of common symptoms of stress, such as poor memory, poor problem solving, inability to concentrate, high blood pressure, differences in sleep patterns, increased drinking or drug taking, digestive issues, headache and backache, disappointment, frustration, conflict, mood swings, and so on. Now, there are four major types of stress: physical stress, environmental stress, psychological stress, and social stress. So, let's start with physical stress. Physical stresses are the demands that change our state of body. Whenever in stress, we physically involve ourselves to cope up with the challenges. There is often a lack of nutritious diet, lack of proper sleep, and individuals also suffer from injuries. Another type of stress is environmental stress. Environmental stresses are those aspects of our environment which cannot be avoided. This involves air pollution, crowding, noise, temperature, disasters like fire, earthquake, floods, etc. Now, another type is psychological stress, which we generate ourselves in our mind. These are internal sources of stress which are unique to a person experiencing them, and they are different from individual to individual. Psychological stress can cause due to frustration, conflict, internal and social pressures. Another type of stress is social stress, which result from our interaction with other people. Social events like death or illness in the family, disturbed relationships, trouble with neighbors are few examples of social stresses. Now, there are four major types of psychological stresses. First is frustration, second is conflict, then internal pressure and social pressure. Frustration occurs when our needs and motives are not fulfilled because of something or someone. It occurs when individuals' desired goal is blocked. Causes of frustration can be social discrimination, low grades in school, etc. Conflict may occur between two or more needs or motives. For example, whether to study economics or psychology. Conflict may also occur when we are pressurized to do anything opposite to our personal values. Conflict occurs when the individual has to make a choice and the choice of one alternative creates frustration. Internal pressure results from our own beliefs. Sometimes our expectations may cause stress, such as I must do everything perfectly. So it results in disappointments and we feel pressure to achieve our unrealistic goals. Social pressures are the excessive demands of the society. This can cause greater pressure when an individual works with the people. There are some people with whom we face interpersonal difficulties. So coming on to the new topic, sources of stress. There are three common sources of stress, which are life events, hazards, and traumatic events. Life events can be stressful for us. Any change, big or small, sudden or gradual, affect our life from the moment we are born. We always learn to cope with the challenges of life and with these life events. Life events can disturb our life and our daily routine. So major life events like changing to a new job, new school, or a new house can be stressful for us, and sometimes we find it difficult to cope with them. Another source of stress is hazards, which are related to our daily life. Due to happenings in our daily life, such as noisy surroundings, shortage of electricity and water, traffic, and so on, we often feel stressed. And these daily hazards may sometimes have devastating consequences for the individual. It affects our psychological well-being. Traumatic events are also a major source of stress. Variety of extreme events such as fire, train or road accidents, robbery and natural disasters like earthquake, floods, etc. create stress in the lives of people. So people suffer from anxiety due to these events. Sometimes professional help is needed to cope with them if the anxiety symptoms persist for many months after the event is over. Now there are various effects of stress on psychological functioning and health. Major effects are emotional, physiological, cognitive and behavioral effects. Emotional effects includes the feelings of anxiety and depression, physical and psychological tension, mood swings and low self-confidence. People who suffer from excessive stress suffer from these emotional changes. A very common example is examination anxiety. Students generally face examination anxiety, which involves feelings of tension that occur before examination, during or after an examination. Students who suffer from examination anxiety develop negative thoughts. They have low self-confidence and low self-esteem, so they have intense emotional reactions. Second is physiological effect. When stress increases, the physiological changes also takes place. These can be extremely damaging to the body. An increased level of stress increases the production of certain hormones in our body. Examples of physiological effects are release of epinephrine and norepinephrine, increased heart rate, and slowing down of the digestive system. Another major effect is cognitive effect. Now, stress affects our mental processes. It affects our ability to solve problems, take decisions, and ability to concentrate. It also reduces our short-term memory capacity. Behavioral effects are observed during excessive stress. Some examples are disrupted sleep patterns, reduced work performance. People often engage in alcohol and other drug abuse when they are in extreme levels of stress. Well, let's discuss about the topic stress and health. The negative impact of stress on the mental and physical health has been found by several researchers. People experiencing stress feel physical exhaustion, and it can be seen in the signs of fatigue, weakness, low energy, high blood pressure, cholesterol level, and stomach problems. People who are under stress also experiences irritability, sleep disturbances, depression, anxiety, helplessness, and many other psychological symptoms. They feel low self-esteem, frustration, lack of support. So the state of physical, emotional, and psychological exhaustion is known as burnout. Burnout is a pattern of physical and emotional exhaustion, performance changes, and behavioral symptoms. Now we will talk about general adaptation syndrome. This concept was given by Hans Selye. In his studies, he found a similar pattern of bodily response to a variety of stressful situations. According to this model, there are 3 stages that individuals experience when they encounter stressors or they respond and try to adapt. First stage is alarm reaction stage. In this stage, the physical reactions occur when a stressor first presents itself. Due to the presence of this stressful stimulus, the sympathetic nervous system becomes active and it activates the body system to maximize strength and prepares body system for the fight or flight response. In this stage, because of the release of hormones, the heart rate increases, blood pressure increases, and other physical responses occur. Next is resistance stage. In this stage, parasympathetic nervous system becomes active for more cautious use of the body's resources. If the stressor continues to be present, the person fights the threat by making efforts to cope with the threat, thus developing resistance. Last stage is exhaustion. Continuous and unsuccessful resistance eventually leads to collapse of physical and mental defenses. Ability to resist is depleted and leads to exhaustion and breakdown. So this figure shows the general adaptation syndrome. You can relate this figure to these three stages. Well, moving on to the next topic, stress and immune system. When we are in stress, the immune system's ability to fight off against attackers is reduced. Therefore, we become more prone to infections. The immune system guards the body against attackers both within and outside, such as bacteria and viruses. So there are different kinds of white blood cells in the immune system, such as T cells and B cells. B cells produce antibodies which are released into the fluid surrounding the body's cells to destroy the invading viruses and bacteria. T cells destroy invaders. So stress can affect natural killer cell cytotoxicity. Changes in the immune system will have more effect on health among those whose immune systems are already weakened. Now this figure shows the relation of stress with illness. This depicts the sequence consisting of negative emotions like fear and anger, release of stress hormones which lead to weakening of the immune system, thereby affecting mental and physical health. Our next topic is stress and lifestyle. Stress can lead to unhealthy lifestyle or health damaging behavior. Lifestyle is the overall pattern of decisions and behaviors that determine a person's health and quality of life. People who are under stress, they have poor nutritional habits, sleep less, and may engage in alcohol and drug abuse. According to studies, health promoting behaviors like balanced diet, regular exercise, family support, social support, and many other factors play an important role in good health. So stress can be reduced by adopting a healthy and good lifestyle, because healthy lifestyle increases positive thinking and longevity. Now today we have finished several topics related to chapter 3, meeting life challenges. Here are some sample questions which you can practice and try to give your answers in comment box. Here the answers of the questions of previous video class are also provided, so you can go through the answers. Hope this video will help you to understand the topic of stress. Thank you so much. Stay home, stay safe and keep learning.